I'm not that out of shape. Several years ago, I realized I had let my body dissolve into flab. I had worked so hard for so many years that I had abandoned the care of my physical condition. The first step to getting into shape was to realize I needed to change my ways, but the second and equally important step was to identify the obstacles to getting there. What would stop me from getting into shape? Once I understood those obstacles, I began a process to lose weight, grow muscle, and become more fit. Your total money makeover is the same. You need to realize there's a problem, but you must also see what could hinder your move toward financial fitness. The next few chapters will identify some major obstacles to your total money makeover. Myths versus truth. Myth: debt consolidation saves interest and you have one smaller payment. Truth: debt consolidation is dangerous because you treat only the symptom. Look in the mirror, take a long look. What do you see? Suck in that gut, hold up your chest, and really look at yourself. It doesn't matter how many angles or poses you take. The mirror is cruel. Well, I'm really not that fat, maybe just a little flabby. My dad used to say that 90% of solving a problem is realizing there is one. Focused intensity, life or death intensity, is required for you to reset your money spending patterns, and one of your biggest obstacles is denial. The sad thing is that you can be financially mediocre in this country, financially flabby, and still be average. And if the truth be known, being average, normal, and financially flabby is pretty much okay by most folks' standards. This, however, is not a book for the wimpy among us. This is a book about winning, about really having something. We started out our marriage with absolutely no debt. We lived on a single income, the cars were paid for, and we even had a small amount of savings. However, we eventually made the misguided decision to move into a much larger house that stretched us financially. After a few years, I changed jobs and we increased our annual income, giving us the illusion that we could increase our standard of living. That is when the debt really started accumulating. We financed 2 new cars to replace our old ones. We started buying everything on credit. We even got a home equity loan. Before we realized it, we were buried in debt. Frog legs. Years ago, in a motivational seminar by the master, Zig Ziglar, I heard a story about how mediocrity will sneak up on you. The story goes that if you drop a frog into boiling water, he will sense the pain and immediately jump out. However, if you put a frog in room temperature water, he will swim around happily. And as you gradually turn the water up to boiling, the frog will not sense the change. The frog is lured to his death by gradual change. We can lose our health, our fitness, and our wealth gradually, one day at a time. It might be a cliche, but that's because it is true. The enemy of the best is not the worst. The enemy of the best is just fine. Shocking stats: 88% of graduating college seniors have credit card debt before they even have a job. I was in denial for a long time about my life and my spending habits. By my mid-20s, I was $23,000 in debt and had little motivation to get out of it. My biggest problem wasn't realizing how nice it was to be free of financial concerns. It was gambling. I couldn't stop. Even when I began listening to the Dave Ramsey show and tried to start attacking my debt, I often failed. I kept losing my money to the addiction I had, never giving me time to get my feet on the ground. It took some time, but finally the financial pressures became too much to bear. I knew I needed a change. I started attending an amazing program called Celebrate Recovery, a ministry dedicated to helping people with addictions, hurts, and hang-ups. I also started my total money makeover, walking through the baby steps one by one. Establishing my emergency fund was the hardest part because I was still trying to break my gambling addiction, and that money would always get lost to some game. But as my addiction weakened and I established a budget, the debt I had incurred became less and less. I moved in with my parents to put would-be rent money toward my final debt. Now I'm saving for a down payment on a house. I hope to reach my goal by next year. It is a wonderful feeling to live without the strain of debt on my life. Tony E. Newman. The pain of change is painful. Few people have the courage to seek out change. Most people won't change until the pain of where they are exceeds the pain of change. When it comes to money, we can be like the toddler in a soiled diaper. I know it smells bad, but it's warm and it's mine. Only when the rash comes will we cry out. I hope Sarah's story and the others in this book will make you unwilling to stay where you are. If you keep doing the same things, you will keep getting the same results. You are where you are right now financially as a sum total of the decisions you've made to this point. If you like where you are, keep it up. Keep in mind, however, why you are reading a book called The Total Money Makeover. Is it because deep down you have the same uneasy feeling Sarah had but didn't address until it was almost too late? Are you really looking for something more? If so, I've got great news. This plan works. Break through the temptation to remain in the same situation and opt for the pain of change before the pain of not changing searches you out. Don't wait for a heart attack to show you that you are overweight. Cut the carbs, the fats, the sugars, and lace up the running shoes now. Few people have the courage to seek out change. The good news about Sarah and John was that the financial heart attack they had made them address their financial eating and exercise habits. The layoff was a wake-up call and the end to denial. After a year of very hard times, Sarah was able to find a whole new career. Only this time, when the checks started rolling in, Sarah and John were using this system. Every paycheck became an exciting event because they had a plan. They were financially losing weight and toning up. It wasn't a quick process, but after following the steps over time, today they are really winning. The night I met Sarah and John, they were 2 years into their plan and smiling. They told me they were debt-free except for their house, and they had $12,000 in the bank just for emergencies. They had broken through their own denial, but they made their family uncomfortable because they refused to live like everyone else. Albert Einstein said, "Great spirits have often encountered violent opposition from weak minds." John's dad had made fun of their plan and the extra jobs they took to win. He asked if they had joined some cult or something. Once Sarah and John had realized they were the emperor with no clothes, denial was no longer an option. Skinny dipping Warren Buffett has a great saying, "When the tide goes out, you can tell who was skinny dipping." I have taught for years that if you have a bad map, you will be late for or completely miss the party. The principles that you build your life on will determine your level of success. If you plan your marriage around a bad map or bad set of assumptions, then it will likely fail. If you have all the good intentions in the world, but build your financial house on bad ideas, it will fall. I personally experienced this a long time ago. With this last recession, many more Americans are discovering that their theories about money and their assumptions about how money works were wrong, and they discovered they were wrong the hard way, through pain. Overspending, that doesn't feel like overspending because things are going well, is still overspending. Using debt to invest in real estate or the stock market and the hope of a quick return will cause you to go broke the minute the market turns. Chasing the next get-rich-quick scam, like the lottery or investing in gold, will always bring you pain. Hiring someone else, like some debt settlement company, to fix your life virtually never works. The myths, lies spread by our culture, that were covered in this book's first 2 editions have all been proven by this economic downturn. If you live the way we teach in this book, you will prosper in good times and in bad times. I have a friend that we will call Chris. Chris told me an interesting story in the middle of the latest recession that illustrates what I am pointing out to you. For 13 years, Chris worked for a large corporation whose name you would recognize. He started his total money makeover about 7 years ago. When I saw him 2 years ago, he ran up to me with a big smile and big hug to proudly proclaim that he was debt-free, including his home. He had absolutely no debt and had saved $38,000 in his emergency fund. When I saw him again a year later, he had another fun story to share with me. It seems that he and his boss had become best friends over the years that they worked together. That week, his friend, his boss, came into his office, with blood drained from his face and his lip quivering, saying, "I don't know how to tell you this, but corporate is making me lie you off." Chris jumped up from his chair, ran around the desk, gave his friend a big hug, and said, "Cool. How much is the severance?"